I, like many of you, enjoy myself some comp. I'm kidding, nobody likes comp. But what I do like are pulse rifles, specifically 4-burst, 450 RPM aggressive burst pulse rifles. They have best-in-class range, big mags, and are incredibly stable, allowing for easy picks at long range and surprisingly good defense in closer ranges, if you've got the tracking aim to back it up. Which is why I've suffered grinding out the competitive playlist as much as possible over this begrudgingly long season for my chance at a god roll at one of the best pulse rifles in the game. And many weeks later, I've got my hands on what appears to be an absolute monster of a roll. So now it's time to ask the age-old question: mid or meta? To answer this question, we'll be putting this weapon through the PvP gauntlet across quick play, comp, trials, and rumble. But first, let's take a quick overview of the weapon in question. Belisarius-D is a Hake 450 round per minute, 4-shot, aggressive burst pulse rifle, dropping as the pinnacle weapon from the competitive playlist this season, featuring notable perks like Rapid Hit, Elemental Capacitor, and Keep Away in Column 3, and Kill Clip, Head Seeker, and Zen Moment in Column 4, as well as a 5th column of traits featuring stocks with additional stat bonuses. And the role that RNGesus was gracious enough to bestow upon me is what we are looking at today. Full bore, high cal, rapid hit, Zen Moment, and a fitted stock with a stability masterwork. Now, this roll here has an incredibly high ease of use, bolstering a whopping 42 meters of range, absolute god tier levels of stability, recoil control, and flinch mitigation, with a perfectly vertical 100 recoil direction stat, as well as a 93 reload stat with 5 stacks of rapid hit. What makes this weapon so special is the combination of top-tier range, stability, and recoil control. Normally when you're choosing between rolls on a pulse rifle, especially aggressive bursts, you're making a compromise between range or stability, trying to find a nice trade-off that feels good, but ultimately sacrificing one or the other. But that's not the case here. With Rapid Hit, Zen Moment, and this pairing of supporting traits, you have S-tier range, stability, recoil control, and reload speed. So now you're probably asking, what's the catch? Well, the only weak stat on this weapon is its handling, at 21. But with a dexterity for strand and my arc shotgun, I had no issues with swap speed and was still able to perform my normal blinting no problem. But the true catch, the biggest hurdle to using this weapon, is just hitting your headshots. But once you hit that first crit, rapid hit, and Zen Moment takeover, turning this pulse into an absolute laser. In the roughly 10 days that I've had my hands on this weapon, I've racked up over 1,000 kills with it in the Crucible. Now, I could go on about numbers all day, but that doesn't mean anything if this weapon can't perform, so let's take a look at the first of our 4 tests, Rumble. When I think of a rumble weapon, it's hand cannons and SMGs, not pulse rifles. And by no means is this a go-to rumble weapon, but that's not what this is about. We want to push this gun into an uncomfortable circumstance to see what it is capable of. And boy was I surprised with the results. I played a little over 10 matches, enough to make sure I got some sweaty lobbies as well as long range and short range maps, and I did better than I thought I would, winning just shy of 50% of my games. The most important quality I'm looking for when I take a weapon into Rumble is the pace that I can play at. Obviously I want something reliable with a high time to kill, but if I can't play at a fast enough pace to win my 1v1s and recover for the next fight, or defend myself from a third party, then I'm not going to have a fun time. And that was my biggest worry with Belisarius. Heavy burst pulse rifles are not known for fast-paced gameplay. Normally when you think of a pulse rifle, it's about laning, holding down long lines of sight, choke points by objectives, not fast-paced dueling. But guys, Belly delivered. It pulled its weight in situations that a pulse rifle has no place being. Thanks to its large magazine, handling back-to-back gunfights and third parties was manageable, and many times Rapid Hit pulled its weight too, allowing me to quickly reload and prepare for the next fight. The pace I was able to play at, and the pressure I was able to put on the enemy was much more than I anticipated, and the dueling, phenomenal. Nothing felt better than landing that first headshot and watching the reticle lock in while I let the yellow numbers fly. Now, obviously it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I got some close range maps and it wasn't the place where this weapon shined. and if I got caught in a close quarters fight with a sub or an auto rifle, it was a quick GG's for me. With all that being said, I have to rate Belisarius a 3.9 out of 5 for Rumble. While it exceeded my expectations for what a pulse rifle should do in Rumble, it took a lot of work and smart decisions to pull it off, so I can't give it a higher score in good conscience, though I really want to. But let's see what Belly can do in a more typical match. 6v6 control. Now, this is a scenario where you would expect to see no issue from a pulse rifle of this stature, especially with our current rotation of maps. They're all large spaces with many long lanes, and as expected, it put in the work, making no issue of 1v1 engagements or packs of enemies team shooting. The ability this weapon has to pick apart groups of enemies by playing off of your cover and splitting a 1v2 or a 1v3 into a series of 1v1 engagements is stellar, especially being able to chain your stacks of rapid hit and Zen moment from the first kill to the second and so on. And if you need to reload mid-fight, no problem. At 5 stacks of rapid hit, the mag swap is just as the perk says, rapid. And when you combine it with an aspect like the Solar Hunters on your mark, the reload is near instant. But that isn't the whole story. While this weapon seems dominant, I was able to be countered more often than I wanted by 2 suspects in particular, Prosecutor and Igneous Hammer. And this makes sense. They're 2 phenomenal weapons that compete with Belisarius on the opposite sides of its effective engagement distance. When I was too close to someone with Prosecutor, or any other top tier auto for that matter, they quickly took advantage of the opportunity and lit me up. And in longer ranged battles, it came down to the timing of my burst versus the timing of getting flinched by the very effective 120 hand cannon. That to say, the matchup between these weapons was still very competitive, and the experience in control was overall very positive. So Belly earns a very well-deserved 4.5 out of 5 for control. But let's see what it can do in the game mode it was built for and birthed from, comp. It would just be disappointing if a weapon like this couldn't hold its own in the competitive playlist. I mean, this is where it drops from. That would be rather ironic, right? Thankfully, it does hold its own, but it was rather unsettling that this was one of the environments that showed its weaknesses the most. And you guessed it, it's hand cannons and auto rifles again. But thinking about it now, it makes sense. This is the hardest the matchmaking ever gets in this game. People are in this playlist to win, and they're bringing their A game, so it only makes sense that this is where I would feel the greatest challenge testing this weapon. Still, I had just as many moments cooking as I had losing gunfights, and at the end of the day, it had little to do with the weapon and much more about the decisions I made and how good of a team I matched against. The fact that I could go toe-to-toe with weapons that are agreeably meta in Ascendant matchmaking is a testament to the capabilities that Belisarius possesses, and a good reminder that it's just as much about the player as it is the weapon they're holding. So I can wholeheartedly give Belly a 5 out of 5 for the competitive playlist. Though, we still have one last domain to test its mettle, the one where you need to trust your weapon most and only the true workhorses survive. Trials of Osiris. The very nature of Trials shows the weakness of a weapon almost immediately. If you want that sweet, sweet lighthouse loot, you gotta play to the strengths of a given meta in the context of the map featured that weekend. And the map that I had the pleasure of testing Belisarius on was Multiplex. If you take a look at the Trials report for that weekend, you can see it was dominated by scouts, making up 25% of total kills. Top weapons include Jade Rabbit, Summoner, Messenger, and Igneous Hammer. I say this to help season the landscape that I had to put Belly up against. Lots of long-range gunfights mixed with moments of pressure from my reoccurring nemesis of this video, auto rifles and hand cannons. And when I say Belisarius put in the work, it's an understatement. This gun carried me to the lighthouse and was a perfect competitor in the matchups I was facing. Because of the insane range and accuracy this role has, I had no issue navigating the distant gunfights that Multiplex creates. Its ability to pick apart the enemy team granted me a solo flawless and many messenger drops with little difficulty. I thought I would run into trouble more often, getting pushed by 120 hand cannons and auto rifles, but this gun prevented that opportunity from ever happening. I was able to get good picks from the start of my matches, and then whittle down the enemy team one burst at a time, so I can easily give it a 5 out of 5 for Trials of Osiris. So, now that we have put Belisarius-D through the gauntlet, thoroughly testing its ability and displaying what it's capable of, we need to answer the age-old question. By now, it should be painfully obvious that this weapon deserves the title of meta. Its oppressive force in the crucible is rarely matched, allowing it to clean up in ways that seem impossible for an aggressive burst pulse rifle to achieve. It's simple, elegant, and rewards you immensely for the one job you have in the crucible: clicking heads. I would strongly encourage you to go out of your way to obtain this role. I know it's not a farmable weapon, but it's well worth acquiring. There's a good reason I was able to rack up 1,000 kills on it in the short time that I've had it. And next season, when it's purchasable through Shacks, spend every engram you can hunting for this role. You won't regret it. If you've made it this far, thank you. I really appreciate you spending the time to watch this video. It took a lot of time to make, so let me know what your experience has been like with Belly or aggressive burst pulse rifles in the comments below. Until next time.